Hi there, and thanks for tuning in to our Wheel and Anchor webinar about our trip to Oman, from deserts to fjords. Now, Oman is a country that not a lot of people know much about. You don't read much about it in the news. And with all of the negative press that's happening in the Middle East these days, there is trepidation about where to travel, whether to travel there at all. For those of you that have might visited Morocco in the past, or perhaps Egypt, a next logical stop would be Oman. This is an incredibly vast country, amazingly friendly people, and some landscapes and colors and culture that is truly, truly amazing. And most of all, it's completely safe. In fact, hardly anything ever happens in Oman, which is why you never read about it in the international press. In fact, I was reading an article from National Geographic that described it as the obvious choice for those seeking out the modern face of Arabia while still sensing its ancient soul. I think this pretty much is a good description of what Oman is all about. Now, if you're a regular Wheel and Anchor webinar visitor and would like to skip the introduction to Wheel and Anchor and what we're all about, then please scroll down below the description on YouTube, look at our chapters, and you can jump forward to our map and our day-by-day itinerary. But if you're new, let me just say a few words about what we're all about here at Wheel and Anchor. We are a community of people from all across Canada with a handful of friends from other countries, and we appreciate a different and a more authentic approach to travel. We welcome anyone that understands that most organized travel these days has become kind of a canned experience. If you want to be herded around from one place to another and be on a hectic schedule for every minute of your trip, then we're probably not the right place for you. But if you appreciate the camaraderie that arises from traveling with people just like you and having enough freedom and free time to go and explore on your own, then you've definitely come to the right place. We have a couple of objectives in mind for those who are part of our community and come with us on our trips, and that's specifically to be well-traveled and well-connected. And that doesn't mean you need to be well-traveled and well-connected before you come. That's the point of joining us. Because I'm not talking about just ticking off boxes on a bucket list, which is not to say there's anything wrong with having a bucket list. As travelers, we all have a list of the dream destinations we'd like to visit someday. But we're talking about the kind of travel that keeps your curiosity, your sense of adventure alive by taking part in experiences that change your perspective on how you see the world, by diving a little deeper into local culture, which frankly might be nothing else other than talking to a person you meet in a local cafe, or perhaps an employee of a museum or some attraction that we visited. You have the opportunity to have one of those aha moments that gives you a deeper understanding of what's really going on in the place that we're visiting. We all have someone we know who we consider well-traveled. There's often a certain wisdom about that person, almost like they know something you don't. This is what we mean by being well-traveled. And as far as being well-connected, well, ultimately, it boils down to making friends with people you actually want to keep in touch with, or at the very least have the pleasure of traveling with on other trips. By having a crew of fellow travel enthusiasts, it means you always have someone to talk about travel with. Because let's face it, travel creates real and meaningful connections because there's always a memory, a story, an experience to share. So by being well connected, I mean actually having the time to talk to people in the places that we visit. And I don't mean just the tour guide or the or our host. Traveling with Wheel and Anchor affords you the ability not only to connect with your fellow travelers, but also with the people who live and work in the towns and villages along the way. Now, as you can imagine, there's a lot of work involved in delivering on this promise, and we have a great team that's dedicated to delivering on exactly all of this. My name is Gordon Drager. I'm the founder of Wheel and Anchor. I'm curator of all the trips that we offer here based on over 30 years of experience bringing Canadians on trips all over the globe. I'm joined by an amazing team of dedicated people. You can see a few of the photos of them here. But the most important person for you to know is Paula Zarnik. She is our lead trip specialist and is the one who, when you call our office, when you drop us an email, she'll be the one that answers your questions and makes sure that this or any of our trips is a right fit for you. The agenda for our webinar today is very simple. You're interested in visiting Oman. Why? Maybe you have read an article in our newsletter about it, or you've seen something on TV or in National Geographic. Maybe you've heard from somebody that's been to Oman. Whatever reason that you're here, my job is to describe and show to you a little bit of this incredible blend of ancient traditions and modern development, the stunning landscapes, the mountains, the deserts, the coastlines. Maybe you want to find a little bit more about this country and the history that is so different in such a turmoil part of the world. Either way, I'm going to take you on a little digital journey through Oman to help understand why this trip might be for you. So as always, looking at the map, let's do a little geographical overview of what we're talking about. You can see in the inset map at the bottom right where Oman is located at the southern end of the Arabian Peninsula. And our trip starts in Muscat, the capital of Oman, which is located right on the Gulf of Oman. From there, we're going to spend, first of all, a few days, and then we're going to head south to Sur, which is known for its maritime history. And then we're going to go inland into the desert, into the Wahiba Sands for a feeling of this vast desert that comprises such a big part of the country. We'll then move on to Nizwa, the former capital, before flying all the way to the south end of the country down to Salalah. For those of you, the main part of the trip will end in Salalah, and you can easily catch a connecting flight back to Dubai or wherever you might be headed. But for those of you that want to get a little bit more, there is a little piece of Oman that is at the northern or the sort of north eastern tip of the Arabian Peninsula in an area called Musandam. And so our extension program will involve heading back to Dubai, spending a night, driving overland through some of the other Emirates, part of the UAE, and visiting this incredibly spectacular piece of Oman that is not contiguous. It's separated from the rest of the country by the UAE. So now let's jump into the 15-day itinerary for our main trip, followed by our extension program up to Musandam. As I said just now, our trip begins in the capital, Muscat. Now, at present, there are no non-stop flights between Canada and Oman, but Muscat is well connected through gateways either in Europe or in the Middle East. On your arrival, you'll be picked up at the Muscat International Airport and brought downtown by our private transfer service. And we'll spend the day at leisure because, let's face it, it's a long trip over from North America to Oman. We're going to be staying right on the beach at the Intercontinental Muscat Hotel. This is really a special place. I'm not generally a fan of big chain hotels, but in the case of Muscat, this is really the best choice for us. In fact, from your room, you might even catch a glimpse of local fishermen heading out for their daily catch, or if you're lucky, even spot some dolphins playing in the distance. For those of you who arrive early and are eager to explore, you're in for a treat because Muscat is a fascinating city that blends its modern skyline with some ancient heritage. The city skyline itself is unique. You won't find any skyscrapers. In fact, you'll see a whole range of whitewashed buildings which are punctuated by minarets and domes. If you decide to venture into the city center, which is just a short taxi hop away, then you should definitely try some Omani coffee, or what's locally known as kawa. It's often served with dates, and it's a great introduction to hospitality in Oman. And here's a little bit of a tip as well. Unlike some of its neighbors, Oman does allow alcohol for visitors, so you can enjoy a cocktail if you fancy one. We'll have our first get together and a group dinner this evening where you'll get to meet your fellow travelers and get excited about the rest of the adventure through Oman. We're going to start off easy on our first day in Muscat by having a gentle walking tour in the morning and participating in a calligraphy class in the afternoon. As we head out in the morning, our local guide will take us around some of the sites of the oldest part of Muscat. And we'll see, among other things, the ancient city walls dating back to the 17th century that are mostly no longer intact, but we'll see the remnants of where they stood and the gates that permitted entry to the city. And in fact, an interesting fact about that is that the gates to the city were actually still closed for security reasons at night up until until a mere 50 years ago, and anyone walking around at night still needed to carry a lantern as recently as that. But more interestingly, in the afternoon, we're going to head off to do a traditional Arabic calligraphy class. Now, you might be thinking, why would I want to learn calligraphy? My handwriting sucks as it is. But this is more than just about writing, because Arabic calligraphy is really an art form that transforms words into stunning compositions. We'll be looking at two different kinds of calligraphy, Naskh and Diwani. That former, Naskh, is known for its clarity, and it's often used in writing the Quran, the book, obviously, of Islam, as well as other books. Diwani, on the other hand, is a more ornate and was traditionally used for publishing official documents. Doing this class, learning a bit about Arabic calligraphy, is a fantastic way to connect a bit with the Omani culture and even have a little souvenir that you might want to take home. In the evening, we'll have our official welcome dinner at a traditional Omani restaurant. The cuisine in Oman is really known for its deep layers of herbs and spices, although it's often not considered as spicy as some of the cuisines from other neighboring countries in the Middle East. You might particularly want to try shua. It's a dish of lamb or goat marinated in spices, wrapped in banana leaves, and slow cooked in an underground sand oven. Delicious. Today's excursions will focus on two highlights, a local souk as well as the palace of the ruling sultan. You probably know already that a souk is basically a market in much of the Arab world. In fact, souks range quite a bit in this day and age. I've seen souks that basically are the modern equivalent of a shopping mall, but Seep Souk in Muscat is definitely a traditional one. And one of the main things that we're going to see is to see a men's tailor crafting a traditional Omani dishdasha. This is the ankle-length robe that is a staple of Omani men's fashion, and it's perfectly designed for wearing in the hot climate. In fact, if you're interested, you even have the opportunity to order a custom-made dishdasha to wear on the trip or take home with you. From there, we'll head over to the Sidab Women's Club, which is a really special place that empowers local women through skills development and entrepreneurship. We'll have lunch here prepared by the local women and get some fantastic insights into Omani customs, and you might even get a chance to try some henna artistry. In the afternoon, we're going to head over to the Sultan's Palace, Al Alam, which is the ceremonial residence of the current ruler, Sultan Haytham bin Tariq. We won't go inside because obviously it is in active use as his home, but the exterior is an amazing example of contemporary Islamic architecture. Palace is flanked with twin forts, Al Jalali and Al Mirani, which date back to the days of Portuguese occupation in the 16th century. It's a perfect shot of how Oman builds its history together with its modern present. And we'll end the day by heading out on a dhow cruise. A dhow, again, the traditional Arab sailing vessel. As we sail along the coast, we'll be watching the sunset over the Gulf of Oman, and you'll really start to feel the magic of the country. There's something special about experiencing Muscat and the coastline, the same way that Omani people have been doing here for centuries. Today's visits will focus on the Grand Mosque and visiting a botanic garden, which you might be surprised to find in the middle of the desert. The place we'll be visiting is the Sultan Qaboos Grand Mosque, which was named after the former ruler of Oman, Sultan Qaboos bin Said, who ruled the country for about 50 years until his death quite recently in 2020. And he was actually quite a benevolent and revered ruler of the country who brought it from being a really backward, impoverished nation into quite a modern country with very high literacy rates. But you'll hear more about Sultan Qaboos on the visit there. But let me tell you a little bit about the mosque. The place is breathtaking. It is a masterpiece of modern Islamic architecture, opened just over 20 years ago. And what's particularly interesting inside are some of the design features, specifically one of the largest hand-woven Persian carpets in the world, weighing about 20 tons, and which took 4 years to make by hand. Absolutely stunning. And above in the ceiling, a chandelier made of Swarovski crystals literally thousands upon thousands of them. After we visit the mosque, we're going to be heading over to the Palmyra Botanic Garden to learn about date palms. You might be thinking, why do we want to learn about trees in the middle of the desert? But date palms are, and you'll find them all throughout the country, they're very important in Omani culture. They've been essential to life here for centuries, providing not just food, but also materials for building and crafting. It's an amazing insight into how the natural world has reshaped Omani life and culture. On this day, the fifth day of our trip, we'll leave Muscat behind and make a 2.5 hour drive down along the coastline towards Sur. On the way, you have a great contrast in scenery as the desert sands seem to sort of melt into the turquoise blue of the ocean. It's really quite amazing. We'll stop in at a little village called Kuryat where we can see some Amani fishermen at work. Beautiful spot for photos, and we might even see some of the traditional fishing methods that are still used. In Sur, we're going to arrive and we're going to be staying right on the beach at the Sur Grand Hotel. It has great views over the Arabian Sea, and it's a terrific base for exploring the town. The town itself is famous for dhow building. These are the wooden ships that have been built here for centuries. And this is one of the last places in the world where you can see this ancient craft in action. We'll take a stroll in the evening along the Corniche, which is the boardwalk that lines the coastline. It's got dhows, watchtowers, and it's a wonderful blend of history and modern life in this small town. We'll have dinner, of course, together, and we'll have a chance to try some seafood specialties because, of course, all of the fishermen will have brought in their fresh catch from the day. On our next day, you'll have time in the morning at leisure, and then in the afternoon, we'll actually go and visit one of those factories where they produce the dhows. During the winter months, the weather here is usually very beautiful. It's sunny, hardly any rain, temperatures in the low to mid 20s. So you'll have the morning to just enjoy. You might want to go and take a swim in the beach on the Arabian Sea, maybe visit the local souks or just hang out and relax. We'll head, as I mentioned, to visit a Dow factory in the afternoon. And as I said before as well, these ships have been built here for well over 1,000 years. And so it's really quite fascinating to see the craftsmanship that goes into each one. The design has hardly changed since they started making them. It's really a living piece of maritime history. That evening, we have a real treat in store, which is that we'll visit Ras Al Jin's Turtle Reserve. This is one of the largest green turtle nesting areas in the whole Indian Ocean. And if we're lucky, we might even see the turtles swimming up onto shore, laying their eggs, or even the more incredible sight of the tiny baby turtles having just been hatched, eking their way along the beach to get into the ocean. It's a magical experience, and it's just one of the many incredible natural wonders that this country has to offer. Today, we head north and up into the desert to our desert camp amongst the dunes. As we head into the desert, of course, the temperature is going to start to climb. But on the way, for a little relief, we're going to stop in at a wadi called Bani Khalid. Now, a wadi is a riverbed, actually. Often they are green, like a kind of like an oasis between two hills. And the one at Bani Khalid is one of the most beautiful ones in Oman. It has clear blue pools surrounded by palm trees. We can actually go and have a little bit of a swim, which will be very refreshing after the desert heat. Our home for the next 2 nights is the Desert Nights Camp in the Wahiba Sands, and so. Of course, when I say a camp, don't think that we're going to be roughing it per se. This place has wonderful luxury tents with all the amenities that you'd expect in a hotel, but with the magic of being located right in the heart of the desert. Each tent has a private deck where you can sit and watch the sunset over the dunes. It's truly a magical experience. Of course, in the evening, it's even more incredible. You will have dinner under the stars, and the night sky in the desert is something that you've like, other than maybe in parts of northern Canada, if we get away from the urbanized areas, you've never seen so many stars in your life. For early risers, then getting up and watching the sunrise in the morning is also a spectacular experience. Today, we'll head out from our desert camp and visit a women's market as well as another wadi. The women's market that we're going to visit today is in a spot called Ibra. And what makes it interesting is that it's one of the few markets in the Arab world that's dedicated predominantly to female merchants. You'll find everything from traditional textiles and handcrafted jewelry to fresh produce. And this is a great opportunity to support local women entrepreneurs and maybe pick up some unique souvenirs. And you'll see here how important a role that women play in Omani society, again, is different from a lot of the neighboring countries in the Middle East. Later on that afternoon, we'll head out to another wadi that is a green area like you see pictured here, called Wadi Nam. And in these villages, we'll get a chance to visit the tribal leader in his Maljis. And a Maljis is another local meeting spot. It's kind of like the community center, if you will. This is where locals come together and share news and, sort of the gossip, if you will, of the day. It's a traditional sort of a meeting space. And being part of this is a real cultural immersion because you'll be welcomed when we arrive with dates and local coffee, and you'll really get a chance to experience what Omani hospitality is all about. And I can tell you, hospitality in Oman is really exceptional, and we'll experience that throughout. But this is the very traditional sort here in Wadi Nam. For those who are particularly adventurous, there's an opportunity later in the afternoon, or specifically at sunrise, to take a hot air balloon ride. I can tell you, if you haven't had the opportunity to do one before, going up in the sky over the desert sands, which turn this magnificent shade with the setting sun, is a brilliant experience. So that's an option for those who would like to see a little bit of Oman from above. We leave our desert camp after this and head up into the mountains to the ancient capital of Oman called Nizwa. When we'll arrive, we'll immediately head off to the iconic and really majestic Nizwa Fort. It was built back in the 17th century, and it's an amazing example of Omani military architecture. The view over the mountains and the city from the top of the fort is absolutely spectacular. We'll stay nearby in this small town at a place called the Nizwa Heritage Inn. It's a charming little guest house. There's no big fancy chain hotels here. We're in a very local, sort of rural part of the country. Not far from the Nizwa Fort, we'll find the souk of the same name, and it's a great place here, again, away from the uh, traditional tourist traps of the bigger cities like Muscat and Salalah, to pick up some very traditional Omani crafts. In particular, here they feature stuff like silver, jewelry, pottery, and of course dates, because dates is such a staple of cuisine, and they are more delicious than anything that you'll find on the grocery stores back home. Of course, bargaining here at the markets, at the souks, is all part of the experience. And if you take it the right way, it's actually quite a lot of fun. In the evening, we're going to have an Omani dinner. We're going to have that shua. I was talking about it a little earlier in the presentation. This is the slow roasted goat or lamb dish cooked in the sand underground. It's absolutely delicious, and will be an appropriate ending to a day in Nizwa. We'll spend our second day, first of all, visiting the local Friday market and then head up into the mountains. We have timed the itinerary such that we'll be there to witness the famous Nizwa Friday Market, and it's actually one of the largest markets in Oman, and it is truly a spectacle. The highlight of it all is the livestock auction, and you'll see all the bidders and sellers doing all of their antics, predominantly focused on the trade of goats. Probably not something that we're going to participate in, but nevertheless, it's a lot of fun to watch. After that, we'll head up to Jebel Akhtar in the Green Mountains. And getting off the desert floor up into the mountains means it's quite a bit cooler. This is one of the few places in the country that fruit and vegetables are grown. So we'll have a light hike through some pomegranate orchards and some mountain villages, and take in some really majestic views of these desert mountains. On our way back to Nizwa later in the afternoon, we'll stop in at Falaj al Khatman, which is part of the ancient irrigation system in the country. It's actually a designated UNESCO World Heritage Site and truly a testament to the ingenuity of the Omanis back in the day, how they managed water in this incredibly arid landscape. Today, we explore more of the history of Oman, stopping in at a UNESCO designated fort, as well as a wonderful Sultan's palace from the 17th century. The Fort of Bala will be our first stop, and really, this is quite an amazing place. It's one of the largest forts in Oman, with outer walls that include an area of about 13 square kilometers. So you can see the picture here barely does it justice in terms of its size. It's strategically positioned at the foot of the Jebel Akhdar Mountains that you see in the background, which really show off its strategic importance in controlling the trade routes in the area for frankincense, which is the predominant commodity that was traded back in the day. The fort used again this ancient Falaj irrigation system, the one I referred to earlier, which is a UNESCO recognized system that has been in used for millennia, for literally thousands of years, and it's still in use today. The fort itself has is witness to some incredible craftsmanship, particularly the pottery that was created there, and you'll find evidence all throughout the fort. There's carved and very decorately incised timber doors, shelves, window screens, and you really get a sense of the very rich, the deep artisanal heritage of the area. And to cap it all off, local folklore would suggest that there's some supernatural powers associated with the fort, that the so-called jinns, the spirits, the magicians had associated with the goings on. So that gives the whole thing kind of a very interesting mystique. From here, we head over to Jibreen Castle, which was originally built as a sultan's palace back in the 17th century, but it later became an educational center, and it too has intricate frescoes and inscriptions that give you a real sense of the wealth and sophistication of Omani culture back some hundreds of years ago. We'll have a chance to visit a pottery workshop in the area as well, and you'll have a chance to see the potters at work and maybe even try your hand out on the potter's wheel as well. We say goodbye to Nizwa and make our way back to Muscat, from where we will catch our flight down to the southern city of Salalah. When we arrive in, we'll be greeted with a very interesting area, particularly because of its microclimate. It actually gets monsoon rains during the summer season, so it turns the landscape quite lush and green. But you can see from the mountainous backdrop and the color of the sea, it is truly spectacular. We're going to be staying at Al Bazid Resort right in Salalah. This is part of the Anantara chain. And again, as much as I generally avoid chains, Anantara do a spectacular job here at Al Balid. It's right on the beach, stunning views out to the sea, and it's built kind of in the style of an Omani fort with all the modern luxuries that you can imagine. There's an amazing spa here, so we'll have the afternoon at leisure to relax at the resort, maybe take a dip in the sea or explore Salalah itself. You might even want to pay a visit down to Al Balid Archaeological Park, which is located right next to the resort, and it's part of the ancient port of Zafar, which gives you terrific insight into the area's history. We'll start off our visit today with a stop at a wadi, and we'll continue on to one of the most important UNESCO World Heritage Sites in the country. We'll start off our visit by heading over to Wadi Darbat, which is one of the most charming and picturesque spots in southern Oman. It's a beautiful, lush valley with a waterfall and a lake, and surrounded by some stunning limestone cliffs. One of the oddities that you might see here are baobab trees. Some of you who've been in southern Africa will recognize these. These are the upside down trees that are not native to Oman, so nobody's actually quite sure how they ended up here. We'll head over to Haram itself, which is one of the 4 sites that is listed by UNESCO as being important to the frankincense trade back in the day. This city was a major hub in the trade of frankincense, which in ancient times was as valuable as gold. And the archaeological discoveries here have revealed some incredible finds, some Bronze Age fortifications. There's a palace that was attributed to the Queen of Sheba, uh, storage rooms where they kept the frankincense, as well as innumerable artifacts, incense burners, pottery, fishing tools. All in all, it's a fascinating archaeological site to visit. Our final stop for the day will be at Al Husn Palace. And although this is still an official royal palace, so we can't actually go inside, but the exterior is an incredible example of traditional Omani architecture. So we'll have some time to stop in at a nearby souk, where you can actually pick up some frankincense to take back home with you as a souvenir. We've devoted the last full day to a free day because there's probably no better place in Oman to spend the final day than here in Salalah. Of course, there's lots of things that you can get up to. You may want to do nothing else other than relax at the resort. Once you arrive there, you'll be happy to have some time to take in all of the wonderful amenities, not to mention the Arabian Sea. But if you're up to a little more, you might want to head into the so-called empty quarter desert. And it's because roughly that quarter of the country is literally completely empty. It's the largest sand desert in the world, and the landscape, as you get a sense of from the photo, is absolutely otherworldly. So we can either set up a 4x4 tour out into the dunes, or there's a number of different ways to enjoy this amazing landscape. If you do go out there, there is a place called Frankincense Natural Park where you can see trees that produce the resin, the resin that actually is turned into frankincense. And there's also a stop at the ruins of Ubar, which is otherwise known as the Atlantis of the Sands, another amazing archaeological site that has only been discovered and excavated in recent years. We'll have our final farewell dinner for the whole group this evening, and say goodbye to those who are departing the following day to head back home or continue their journey onward. For those heading out, you will fly home directly from Salalah, either via Muscat or back to Dubai or Doha, depending on the routing that you came in on. And otherwise, for those staying on, the next part of our adventure is no less exciting. So let's now take a look at our post trip, which is going to take us back to Dubai, where we'll spend a night and then exploring the beautiful fjords of northern Oman. So, for those continuing on our extension trip, you will fly from Salalah back to Dubai, where we will be whisked into our hotel in the downtown part of the city. If you've been to Dubai before, you will have an idea of what this crazy metropolis is all about. And if you haven't, well, you are in for quite the surprise. Dubai is truly a marvel of modern architecture, lots of ambition, and even more money. Of course, it was literally created out of the desert from, really a small town over a course of just a few decades. It's a marvel in so many regards. I would need a whole webinar just to talk about it. We're going to be staying right in downtown Dubai, as I said, at the Swiss Hotel, which is just across from the Dubai Mall and the Burj Khalifa, which you can see in the center of the photograph. That is the tallest building in the world at 828 meters high. That is not the Burj Al Arab, the sail that is in the sea at the front. That's a different building, and certainly an icon of Dubai in and of itself. But we're going to be staying in the central CBD of the city. There's lots to do. And as I say, just across from our hotel, you can visit the Dubai Mall, gigantic in and of itself, one of the many biggest of in the city, with over 1,200 shops, a waterfall, an indoor aquarium. There's so much to it. And in front of the Dubai Mall, you have the incredible Dubai Mall fountains, as well as the Burj Khalifa. You can also go up to the observation deck, 148 floors above the ground, for a commanding view of the city. There's a high-end restaurant up there, and or you can simply enjoy the evening watching the spectacle that is the Dubai fountains. They are really quite impressive, I have to say. So we'll have an evening basically at leisure, and then be up to enjoy our trip overland to Musandam the following morning. We'll leave the glitz and glamour of the city of Dubai behind and make a 2.5 hour trip heading towards Khassab, the gateway to the Musandam Peninsula. It'll be interesting along the way as the landscape changes from a very modern city that has quite a few green bits, all, of course, artificially irrigated. And then you head through vast, completely flat desert landscape. And then we arrive into Muzandam, where all of a sudden the mountains will rise up on all sides. So it's really quite a remarkable change of scenery along the way. We're going to be staying in the Atana Musandam Resort. It's a really special hotel that was designed to blend in with the surrounding landscape using traditional Omani architectural methods. And we'll have a view out to the sea, so you might even see some local fishermen in the bay heading out for their daily catch. We'll head right out on our first excursion to Khassab Castle, which was built by the Portuguese back in the 17th century. And it's a wonderful blend between the two styles, European, Arabic. And there's also a great exhibit on maritime history with some traditional dhows on display. We'll, in fact, take a dhow, not one of the ancient ones, but a relatively new one for a sunset cruise, gliding around the fjords, looking out for dolphins along the way. They do frequent the waters around Musandam, and we'll sail into the sunset, as it were, and the sky will come up with some incredible colors. And you'll begin to see why they refer to this region as the Norway of Arabia. Today's adventure will undoubtedly be a highlight of the trip as we set out on a traditional dhow to cruise around the fjords. And I can certainly say that these fjords are unlike any that you may have seen before. The Musandam fjords are actually the only desert fjords in the world. So you can picture, as you can kind of get a glimpse from the picture here, towering cliffs rising out of turquoise waters, not a tree in sight. It's almost like an alien landscape. And we'll sail around on one of these traditional dhows. They've been used here for centuries, so it's really no better way to experience the fjords. The water is warm. It's super clear. There'll be opportunities to stop, go for a swim, go for a snorkel. The marine life is incredible. You might even see the colorful parrotfish or a sea turtle or two if we're lucky. But as I said before, when we're out on the Dow, we will hopefully see a number of different species of dolphins that frequent the area, including the spinner dolphin, which makes these very acrobatic leaps out of the water, just like you see in the movies. We're going to spend our next day in Musandam exploring the rugged interior of the countryside. As we head out, we'll be going in a 4x4 because it's really about the only way you can access some of the more remote regions of Musandam. We'll climb up into the mountains. The landscape will change. We'll rise up to over 1,700 meters above sea level, and the views, again, out to the ocean, out to the fjords, truly spectacular. We'll see some interesting and unique flora, the frankincense trees again, acacia. We'll stop along the way for lunch at a little mountain village called Say. It's a wonderful opportunity to see Omani mountain life. We'll have had a little bit of an experience of it in Nizwa, but here the villagers still practice traditional crafts and farming methods that have been passed down from generation to generation. We'll head back to Khassab town for lunch, visit the souk there. It's not a big one. It's not as large as some of the ones we'll have seen in the main part of Oman, but it's got a nice mix of traditional crafts and everyday items. So it's also a good place to pick up some frankincense or maybe one of the Omani Kanjar daggers as a souvenir to take home. Today, we get even more up close and personal with the fjords by heading out on a kayaking excursion and having some free time in the afternoon. For me, there's no better way to experience nature up close than from the seat of a kayak. And of course, here is no different because you can really peer down to the beautiful coral reefs to see all the colorful fish. Not to mention those that jump out of the water, like the dolphins I was just talking about. There's also some lovely villages along the coastline and these incredible cliffs. Just a slow-paced way, a nice way to spend our last day in Musandam. We'll have a picnic lunch, and then the afternoon will be free for us to enjoy, either to relax at our hotel or maybe take a dip one more time in the Arabian Sea. If you're still interested in learning more about the Dow building, there's a possibility to go and visit the Kasab Dow building yard, where the craftsmen again follow these traditions that have been passed down for centuries. And we'll have one last evening in Musandam before we make our departure the following day. Musandam will undoubtedly have left a lasting impression on all of us that choose to visit, and we'll have to say goodbye and head back to Dubai, where we will be brought to the airport for our return flight home, or perhaps an onward journey to somewhere else in the region. If you found this appealing and you'd like to get more details about one of our upcoming trips to Oman, then stop at our website. You'll find the link in the description below this video in YouTube. There you can get a summary of some of the things I talked about on the trip, but you can also download our detailed trip itinerary, which was a lengthy trip-specific document with beautiful color pictures that takes you through all of the details of what this trip entails. And in addition to that, we also have our trip-specific reference guide, which is kind of like the FAQ, the logistics information with all of those need-to-know bits of information that you might want to consider before deciding whether to join us on this trip. Of course, there may still be other questions that you have. We invite you to contact us by dropping us an email, giving us a call, and Paula, or one of our trip specialists, will be delighted to answer any questions that you have about this trip, so you can consider coming along with us. I appreciate you tuning in and finding out a little bit more about our adventure through Oman. If you would like to follow our webinars as they get released, you can certainly subscribe to our YouTube channel by clicking on the subscribe button just below this video. Otherwise, follow our newsletter and stay tuned for upcoming new trips as they get released. Thanks again. Have yourself a great day.